Most people think great conversationalists are born with a silver tongue. They imagine a genetic lottery where some people get the gift of gab and the rest of us are left staring at our shoes while the silence grows heavy. You think you're socially awkward. You think you're boring. You think your brain just doesn't have the data. But in reality, you have the same massive library of experiences and thoughts as everyone else. The difference? Your retrieval system is broken. You're running on an outdated social operating system that crashes the moment the pressure builds. You aren't running out of things to say. You're hitting a 404 not found error in your own mind. Take the world's most elite interviewers, people who can talk to a stranger for 3 hours and never hit a lull. They don't have a script, they don't have a teleprompter, they have a protocol. I've deconstructed the mechanics of social flow. Thousands of hours of dialogue, psychological studies on rapport, linguistic patterns. It comes down to 4 specific tools. Chapter 1, surface area. Your conversations are dying because they have no grip. When someone asks you, "How was your weekend?" and you say, "It was good," you just committed social arson. You burned the bridge. You gave them a single data point with 0 hooks. Cognitive psychologists call this a dead-end response. Your working memory is trying to protect you by being brief, but it's actually starving the interaction. Experts don't give answers, they give handles. If you say, "It was good, I finally finished that book on Roman history and went for a long hike," you've just increased your social surface area by 300%. You gave them 3 different threads to pull: the book, the history, the hike. Most people try to drink from a fire hose of information, but they forget to offer a cup. You need to provide free information. This is the metadata of your life. It's not about being a narcissist. It's about giving the other person raw material to build with. If you don't provide handles, you're forcing the other person to do 100% of the cognitive lifting. Eventually, they'll get tired and they'll walk away. Chapter 2, the mirroring protocol. In high-stakes hostage negotiations, there is no room for silence. Silence means someone dies. Chris Voss, a lead FBI negotiator, discovered a tool that creates an infinite loop of information. It's called mirroring. It sounds too simple to work. It feels like a glitch in the matrix. You simply repeat the last 3 words of what the other person just said, but you do it with an upward inflection, like a question. Them, "I've been really stressed at work lately." You, "Stressed at work?" Them, "Yeah, my boss is piling on these new projects and the deadlines are impossible." You, "Deadlines are impossible?" It's the social equivalent of a ping command in networking. You are sending a signal, and their brain is hardwired to respond with more data. You aren't thinking of what to say next, you are using their own words as the fuel for the next sentence. This bypasses the illusion of competence. You don't need to understand their job. You don't need to know their boss. You just need to reflect the last bit of data they dropped. It forces them to expand. It highlights the gaps in their own story. It's a biological "tell me more" button. If your brain is sweating trying to come up with a witty comment, you're working too hard. Stop searching your own hard drive and start mirroring theirs. Chapter 3, the cold read. Most people think a conversation is a series of questions. What do you do? Where are you from? Do you like your job? Wrong. This isn't a conversation. This is an interrogation, and interrogations are exhausting. They create high cognitive load. They make the other person feel like they're taking a midterm exam. Elite communicators use statements, not questions. Specifically, they use the cold read. Instead of asking, "What do you do for a living?" you make an assumption. You look like someone who works in a creative field. Now, 2 things happen. 1, if you're right, they're impressed. They think you have a 6th sense. 2, if you're wrong, they will immediately correct you and explain why. "No, actually, I'm an accountant, but I play guitar on the weekends." Either way, you get more information than a simple question would ever provide. Why does this work? Because of a psychological quirk called the correction reflex. Humans have an innate biological urge to correct false information. It's a survival signal. We want the record to be straight. When you ask a question, the person has to search their memory for an answer. When you make a statement, you trigger a reaction. It's lower friction. It's more playful. It transforms a boring exchange of facts into a game of hot or cold. You are no longer a student asking for permission. You are a captain steering the ship. Chapter 4. The vulnerability loop. You are afraid of looking stupid. You are afraid of the social ram failing and leaving you standing there with a blank stare. So you play it safe. You stay on the surface. You talk about the weather. You talk about the news. You are passive reviewing the world around you. And it is boring. Research into social bonding shows that rapport isn't built through shared success. It's built through shared struggle. In the world of surgery, there's a concept called see one, do one, teach one. In conversation, it's share one, hear one, bond one. When you admit a small, relatable failure, you are releasing a flood of neurochemicals in the other person's brain. You are signaling that the environment is safe. You are lowering the social firewall. This is the biological sticky note. People don't remember the facts you told them. They remember the error signal you shared. If you tell a story about how you accidentally sent a meme to your CEO, it's locked in, permanently. You are using your mistakes as a bridge. Experts seek out the resistance. They don't hide their blind spots, they highlight them in neon lights. If the conversation feels easy, you aren't building a connection. You're just vibrating the air. If it feels a little risky, if your heart rate is up just 5%, that is where the learning happens. But tools alone won't save you if your hardware is crashing. Most of you are socially bankrupt because you're overstimulated. You spend all day scrolling through 15-second clips. You are training your brain for a 0-second latency. Then when you get into a real-life interaction, you panic when there's a 3-second pause. You think you've run out of things to say, but you haven't. You've just forgotten how to process silence. Silence isn't a failure. Silence is the save button. It's when both brains move the conversation from temporary RAM to the permanent hard drive. If you don't allow for the pause, you aren't communicating. You're just downloading. The most powerful phrase in a conversation isn't a witty comeback. It's, "Tell me more about that." It's a survival signal that says, "I'm listening and I am not going anywhere." Stop trying to be a genius. Stop trying to memorize thousands of jokes and stories. You don't need a bigger hard drive. You need a better algorithm. Use the surface area to create hooks. Use mirroring to create an infinite loop. Use cold reads to trigger the correction reflex, and use vulnerability to lock it all in. You don't need to be born with it. You just need to install the system. Practice in the cracks of your day, with the barista, with the person in the elevator, with your coworkers. Don't practice what you're good at. Practice the silence. Practice the error 404. Because discomfort is the price of mastery. The smartest people in the room aren't the ones talking the most. They're the ones who make the other person feel like the only person in the world. They fail in their heads, so they don't fail in the interaction. And eventually, they don't even have to think about it. The system just runs in the background. And the silence, it never comes back.